So now we have a basic understanding of how animals are trained. So how can we use this understanding on ourselves? We can't cage ourselves or put ourselves on a leash. We can't clap our hands or bang our cage to get our attention or set up a scratching post. Because we are the trainers, part of our training involves training our beast, and part of it involves training ourselves to be aware, to solve the puzzles, and learn how our inner beast perceives things. There are two major tools that can be used for self-training: mindful meditation and self-hypnosis. In comparison to animal training, mindful meditation is the equivalent of behavioral inspection training in a puppy, while self-hypnosis is the actual training process. You hold the puppy and make it stay still and condition it to let you inspect its body. It's relaxing for both you and the puppy and allows you to bond better. Mindful meditation teaches you to calm your thoughts and condition you to relax and stay still, just like in puppy training. It also helps you become more aware of your inner beast as you learn to inspect it and pay attention to how it reacts. Unlike with a puppy or child, which you can choose not to have these days, we're all handed an inner beast from day one with no guide on how to train or deal with it. Some people's inner beasts are the dominant alpha and go tearing around doing whatever they want. Many times they will latch onto other alphas more dominant than their own, establishing a hierarchy. Some were trained with fear by their parents or peers and react nervously or hide away. Some were ignored like a dog chained to a yard, and some were abused by the self and others, creating self-loathing. The inner beast wants validation. It wants attention. If not given it on your terms, it becomes very needy for any validation. Mindful meditation is like a self-cuddle where you learn to accept your inner beast for what it is and not for what you want it to be. Once you have accepted that and learned to be content and taught to be calm, restricted, and patient, and it wants to please you, then it can move on to self-hypnosis, which is much more like actual animal training. Children start out with their higher thinking underdeveloped. They are very much like a puppy, and you need to train it as such, timeouts like cage training and such. This is good because the higher thinking isn't there to get in the way of learning and cause willfulness. You have to be alpha, however. As their higher thinking develops in their teen years, you have to transition to being more of a beta as they begin learning how to train and be the alpha of their own inner beast. I was going to start off with self-hypnosis because that is what I was taught initially. I had learned mindful meditation actually from a hodgepodge of various sources, so I took to self-hypnosis very well. After learning it, I delved into Buddhism, which filled in the final gaps of mindful meditation without realizing it. However, in the last year, I've been extremely stressed over finances and job issues, and I began neglecting my inner beast. Luckily, I had a lot of time to train it, so it was still well behaved, but there are more situations where its patience can wear very thin. I can also still use some aspects of self-hypnosis, but I can't get to the root of it thanks to the stress. By the end of this month, we should be back on track financially, and I will be focusing deeply on retraining my inner beast's relaxation and mindful meditation. Psychology refers to the higher mind in the inner beast as the reflexive and reactive mind. The purpose of meditation is to power down the reactive mind, or inner beast, and train the reflective mind to debug errors in it that you may not like. Mindful meditation is probably the most studied and praised form of meditation by psychology. Trials and studies have shown it to drop depression levels by half, to reduce anxiety, to increase brain mass, to increase memory, to reduce heart attacks, to reduce pain, and help with breaking habits. It also allows your thoughts to be calm and coherent, and your stress levels to reduce. Many fear that if they let their thoughts calm, their creativity will drop, and if they let their stress drop, their drive will also drop. Your creativity and drive won't go anywhere if you're relaxing and training at the same time. Your racing thoughts won't fly by so fast that they aren't usable, and your stress is not your motivator if it's chronic and too high. I don't know how many nights I would lay awake at night thinking amazingly creative things, going 500 miles per hour, and then go, okay, now someone put this into a book or movie or something, because I can't do what it takes to capture all the creativity and make it into something someone else can enjoy. Stress in medium to low levels can increase motivation and can increase memory levels. However, chronic stress without breaks can cause many health ailments. Chronic high stress can cause weight gain or loss depending on the severity. It does damage to your arteries as your blood pressure goes up. It severely increases your chances of heart attack later in life. Mind you, the average American has the same level of stress that you do, so don't freak out like you're going to drop dead or something tomorrow. You just won't live nearly as long as you could have lived. When looking for examples, back in the day, I used to look to Tolkien's elves for the best way to live. One of the things Sam said about the elves is that they can be as somber as kings or gods, and they can be merry as children. This duality is a great way to look at one's view on stress. Letting your emotions out and not taking life so seriously and enjoying yourself leads to rest, boosted immune system, and greater creativity and wonder. But life most often requires you to act sober-minded and focused on non-enjoyable and many times sobering thoughts. Being able to switch between the two is a very difficult task. Many times, one can set up boundaries in areas or places where they can think in different mindsets to let their brain refresh and boost itself. After resting and relaxing, the mind and creativity can now be harnessed much better than they ever could when they were racing to the point that you couldn't use them for anything. Fixing requires rest, as change in your neural pathways take time and use a lot of energy. However, a major bonus is that fixing one's problems gives your brain more energy to fix other problems, creating a cascading effect. Overloading one part of the brain can cause problems in other areas because it's sucking away your energy, preventing efficient use. It's like having too many applications open on your computer. You can get to the point where the computer locks up because there's so much going on. Closing applications speeds up all the other programs so you can finish up those faster and focus on essential projects. Also, any thought you have uses up energy, making your brain cells hungrier. If you're constantly thinking and you deplete your resources, your brain doesn't have the juice to cope with things like depression and anxiety. A book called Willpower by Roy Baumeister discussed how glucose can increase willpower and other brain skills. Sadly, what most people do when they get hungry from thinking is chow down on sugar or carbs. Some of this goes to refuel your brain, but often not enough, so you stay hungry and eat more. 25% of the food you eat goes to your brain, but 75% goes to your body, and if you're using your brain and not your body, unfortunately, that just kind of builds up. Eating something that's packed with good fats and protein will give your brain the pick-me-up it needs while being satiating, instead of just giving you a spike and then a crash like carbs and sugar do when it comes to glucose. Fatty fish like sardines for me are the best mental pick-me-ups I've found, and of course my cats like the juice. Flax and walnuts are okay, but you should probably not use them as a last-minute thing. Work them into your daily diet to keep yourself at the proper mental energy levels. Also, one of the purposes of sleep is to reoxygenate your brain and refuel it, so make sure you get between 7 to 9 hours a day. Genes have been found that show that some people need 1 more hour of sleep than other people to function properly, so figure out which one you are. Sleeping more than that can start having the opposite health benefits. For me, low-level depression is a sign of brain energy depletion, and I have to pay attention to it. It's a sign of an empty and overworked mind that needs refreshing. Repeat depression can send your brain into deeper depression, and you can get addicted to emotional drama. This is, of course, just one of many types and causes of depression. Being in touch with your hunger and body is as important as being in touch with your pet's livelihood. Without it, neither of you will think as efficiently as you should. I've been told all my life not to overthink things. All my life I've resented this idea because, in my opinion, they weren't thinking enough. This mindset also is probably a cultural one that was advantageous for areas that didn't have enough food quite often, and this area thrived as intensive thinking requires a lot of food consumption. I still disagree often with people who tell me not to do this, but I have found several important times when you should not think so much. 1. When you're making a decision with a time limit. Self-training like mindful meditation can help you if you're too indecisive. More often than not, your gut reaction will be better than wasting all the time. Most test instructions tell you to go with your first instinct and not to go back unless you're certain you're wrong. 2. You are feeling depressed. When depressed, your brain is using a ton of energy to deal with the depression. Sadly, we just want to think and brood more. Many times we try and solve the problem of our depression because we're so used to doing things to fix it. Like when the body is fighting an infection, We have to stop using the brain so it can fight the depression. 3. When you're in a social setting and people are either uninterested in deeper analytics of a particular subject, or they haven't developed the ability to think hard without energy depletion causing depression. Sadly, it's highly unlikely that you can change them. So in the next 2 videos, I'll discuss how to meditate mindfully and let our inner beast rest and be refreshed.